Age of quarantine. My name is Chris Enriquez. You can follow me at Chris Enriquez Drums. I am the drummer of the band Spotlights, and I also work at Revolver Magazine. I also play guitar in a band called Total Meltdown. You can follow at Spotlights Music, at Total Meltdown NYHC, at Revolver Mag, and my personal at Chris Enriquez Drums. My guest tonight, who you hear in the background, is the incredibly talented Marissa Nadler. She has a record, well, she has many records out, which we'll get into. What you hear right now is one of my favorite songs from Drone Flower. Granted, it's a cover, but I was just telling her how great it is. That's Estranged off of 2019's Drone Flower, which she did a collaboration with Stephen Brodsky of Cave In and Mutoid Man, which I'm wearing a t-shirt of. It looks like she's trying to join in, so enough of me yapping. Let's get Marissa on the screen. Can't wait. I think she should be popping up any second now. I see the technology wheels churning. Hello.
Hey,
How are
can you
you?
hear me? I'm good. How are you?
I'm keeping busy, very very busy. What a time, man. How have you been managing to get through this whole situation?
Yeah, it's been tough, I'm keeping very busy as usual. Just I already am kind of isolated, so I'm good at this shut-in vibe.
Yeah, I feel you. I was working from home before this happened anyway, so it wasn't so different, but definitely strange not being able to go as musicians. We're so used to being able to perform or go see our peers play or just practice, and it's so unfortunate and bizarre. And we're trying our best to keep people entertained and talk to some of our favorite musicians. So I can't thank you enough for making time to chat with me tonight.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. It's my first live stream ever.
Well, I'm honored to be the first one doing it with you. So, yeah, I mean, nothing to be nervous about. This is, as my co-host Dave Castillo likes to say, we're just hanging out.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. Obviously, the way I like to do things is I like to kind of delve into your history as a performer, and how you got started and all that to where we are today. But let me just ask you, in terms of the pandemic, though, how did the pandemic affect your plans?
Um, well, I'm not on a touring year. I was planning on recording a new record this summer, and so that's one thing that has been kind of put on hold. And I might end up recording it at home and going to some professionals just for the mixing and mastering. I had some shows that were in the books, and it doesn't look like touring is going to be happening for a while, I think.
I know. Tell me about it. I mean, I was supposed to go to Roadburn, so that was very upsetting, and they already postponed it until 2021. So, I just cross my fingers that you and everyone out there who have performed at St. Vitus can get back to getting music in front of people. Um, let's talk about how you got started. I mean, I want to kind of go back to the beginning of. Obviously, let's start with where are you from originally?
I'm from suburban Massachusetts, um, right outside of Boston, a little town called Needham.
Yeah, yeah. No, so Boston has always had such a strong music scene of every genre. I've personally been there so many times to perform or record or just to see shows, and it's one of my favorite you know communities for art, whether it's in Allston or just Boston, Mass. Very very awesome place for music. Let me ask you this, going, just really going back early, what are your earliest memories of just discovering music?
Well, my parents are pretty cool. Like my first concert ever was Jethro Tull and Procol Harum, um, and they took us to see the Grateful Dead and they were just really into music, like whatever. Um,
Yeah.
they went to Radiohead shows in the 90s, but
Oh man, lucky.
it was cool. They were so I had a access to an older brother who was very cool, and he's very smart and knew it was like the Almost Famous movie
Yes.
where he taught me my first chops on the guitar and stuff. So,
I was
um,
going to ask you about that, because I wasn't sure if singing or guitar came first. I just realized I forgot to tell everybody something. I noticed there's a question in the box below the screen. Um, you guys can ask questions, and it's very easy for me to get to them eventually if you use the question mark box at the bottom of the screen. At some point during our chat, I'll read some of those and address them. But yeah, so you mentioned your brother taught you how to play guitar. Is that before you started singing?
yeah, I was a pretty shy kid, as you can imagine, and so I didn't do choir and I didn't stick with music lessons. Just like I wanted to write really quickly and got bored really easily. So I wasn't really, I was singing in the shower and pretty shy. But then it just all happened, like teen angst and
Right.
Nirvana and
Oh,
grunge hit hard in my household. So I started writing songs like around age 14.
that's such a important era too. Like uh, being 14 and just the way that Nirvana. I think we were probably you and I think might be around the same age. We were lucky to have that because I think anybody that grew up around that time that made you feel like you could do it. There's something about the way they performed and the way that he wrote songs that made you feel like you could do it. And I love that you mentioned Nirvana. Um, with your, what were some of your other musical or, especially vocal inspirations growing up as you were finding your identity?
Well, at first I was very into Courtney Love, and I still love Hole. I know whatever. Like so anyway, my mother was getting tired of hearing like the specific screaming style that I was into, because that's what I was doing. I was emulating that, and so she turned on to like some of the older songwriters like Joni Mitchell, and I was
Right.
also listening to Nina Simone a lot as a kid, and just whatever. Like Abbey Road was my first boombox record.
That's a good
Fuji's
one to start
the
with.
first record I bought ever. Yeah. So
I love that you remember that. I sometimes people forget. I remember my first was Billy Joel. I'm from Long Island, so it was like Uptown Girl, and I'll never forget it. So I love when people remember those things because it is special. It shows how special it is because you don't remember probably the first TV show you watched, right? But you remember the first record or the first song that you gravitated to. What so growing up in the suburbs of Boston, like I said earlier, a strong music scene. Do you remember the first live music experiences, just going to shows or some of the artists that you saw live for the first time?
yeah, I went to see Elliott Smith at the Avalon in Boston in high school, and that was a pretty big deal. Um, he was a very influential songwriter for me, and kind of justified my idea of like full records of nothing but sad songs with no up tempo numbers, and it hit hard. And I also went to see some Ani DeFranco concerts because I had the Righteous Babe shirt and like I had pink, I was kind of a different tough cookie back then.
Right, right. Yeah, no, Elliott Smith, God, man, I remember. I'm so happy that you mentioned that because I loved when I first heard him. It was on that Goodwill Hunting. I don't know if that was the same for you, but that was the soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you and I got to see him when he was alive. Thank God, because what a performer, man! It still lives up to this day. Um, let me. So was the punk rock, or because you do get often sort of thrown into the metal, punk, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, like the aggressive music scene. I think the one thing that that all of it has in common is there's a darkness to it. How'd you get kind of lumped into all that?
I think it all started, well, I was always, I mean, in 2004, my first album came out. It was called Ballads of Living and Dying. So I was pretty like formatively gothic. I was like very brooding and I was a different type of writer. I had an Edgar Allan Poe poem and it was kind of creepy from the start. I had a song called The Undertaker, Box of Cedar about a coffin. So that was my debut album. And it took, so looking back on it though, I have very fond memories of it because a friend recorded it. And anyway,
Yeah.
metal. So um, then I guess Xastur, I think that's how I pronounce it, but Xasthur.
I don't know
He
if I've heard of them.
Well, he's a pretty amazing one man like metal. He's collaborated with people, but he asked me to sing on his record called Portal of Sorrow in 2006. And it was like my first, I had always had dark lyrics and dark themes and general misanthropic outlook.
Yeah, yeah.
I was a kid. And so it made sense. So I sang on his record, and since then, it's been like fun to have a foot in different genre worlds because I think being pigeonholed as an artist is like death to development.
Absolutely, I agree. And what you said makes sense lyrically, and I feel like ever since anything like new wave music or you could say people that like metal or punk or aggressive music are fans of anything from Depeche Mode to The Cure, and that's not necessarily heavy music, but the subject matter and the lyrics I think are very on par with the subcultures. But yeah, your first record came out in 2004, and if I'm not mistaken, you've put out 10 records, right? 10 full-length records.
Something like that. Yeah, like 10 studio albums almost. I don't really kind of there there's other ones that are near and dear to my heart that don't count in that, like because they were demo releases or self recordings. And I don't know, I've done a lot of music. I keep busy.
I was gonna say, like, it's kind of a strange question, but are you writing all the time? Some musicians treat it differently, where they maybe say, "I'm finished with my tour cycle and promoting my last record. I'm now going to take a break and start over again." Whereas maybe some songwriters, they're just always writing, and there's just a pool to choose from. Where do you kind of fit into that?
I have to say that I go in manic bursts. Like I won't write a song forever and then I'll write a whole record. Like I store it up and I in like this vortex. And so sometimes I just hit major writer's block, and just like anybody else, sometimes you can't write a song a day. Well, you could, but I think the best songs that I've written do come hit me. Like I don't say that there's a muse that strikes, but at the same time, you should feel the need to write a song, not the necessity. You
Yes,
know,
I agree. I definitely can feel that. Sorry, go ahead, please. I didn't mean to interrupt.
that was it. Like yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say. I mean, I'm a drummer predominantly, but I do write songs, and I feel like I can relate to what you're saying in the sense that, like, thank God for technology, right? Because I don't know how they did it back in the day, but there are times I feel like when you just have something in your head, it could be a melody or just something that you don't want to forget, and if you don't throw it down that second or 5 minutes after it enters your head, it could just be gone. So you kind of want to document it. When if you're that kind of songwriter, I don't know, everyone's different. What is your typical writing process like?
Well, it's changing because I'm like trying to force changes just for experimentation's sake. But like in the old days, I would, just sit down with an acoustic guitar and get a melody. Or, well, my first record, I was pretty pretentious as an art school student. I wrote it on a typewriter.
I love that. Hell
So
yeah.
I still have those like pressed flowers. I think growing up in an era of plasticity, I really longed for antiquity or like the semblance of it. But most of the time melody first, then words last, like
Yeah.
structure and melody, song structure, hooks, I kind of
Right.
write from a melodic standpoint first and then a narrative one afterwards.
Absolutely, and I hear what you're saying, and how the description that you're giving me very much translates in how I process your music as a listener. Let me ask you too, because you do really have a real knack for not only being melodic and telling a story, but doing it in a very non-traditional way, in my opinion. I mean, there's of course like the traditional singer-songwriter thing is prevalent, but there's a way that you do it that really sets apart. And so I wanted to know, are you self-taught or you mentioned your brother, but you know what I'm saying? Like, did you study beyond that, music theory or anything?
No, yeah, I'm self-taught. I like, although now in my later life, I really do want to learn the piano and I want to have access to some of these beautiful pieces. So I'm working on developing reading music now, but I've written all my songs, every single one of them, but from just ear, I guess,
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I ever sang a harmony was in a recording studio. And that was pretty life changing. I was like, I can't, it was like my mind was blown that you could, like, it was definitely
Right.
kind of outsider approaching music.
Yeah, no, totally. Let me get to some of the questions. It looks like I have a bunch of them. They're going to appear on the front of the screen, but I'm going to choose the questions just to make sure that we got some good ones here.
I'm sure
Uh,
some fun ones, yeah.
yeah, let's see. Let's see what this guy has to say. Juan Borges 98. Is All the Colors of the Dark based on the Italian film? What are some of your favorite horror films? Good question, Juan.
Okay, well, so this is very meta. This is very much a modern answer, but the phrase came from an Instagram follower that I liked. Then I liked those words, and so I just followed him back. And I wasn't aware when I wrote the song that it was a horror film, and until later, of course. I
Uh,
Yeah, it was just like I was like, that's a beautiful phrase, and so I wrote a song about it, But
cool that followed back one of your fans. I know the word fans is kind of taboo in our world, but your followers, and it just goes to show that the power of social media. You could be following one of your favorite artists, and suddenly you've now inspired them. So that's a great story. Let me see what else we
oh,
have.
I forgot the second horror. I think like The Shining is my favorite horror movie. I like the less gratuitous violence and more of like psychological fear, you know?
No, I feel that is a classic film. I mean, like you said, it's not even just the fact it's a horror film; it's the aesthetic, and the whole, you know, the way that the story unfolds is just, man, that was such a good movie. Um, let's see what else that we got here. We got a couple other questions that I'll get to. Some of these are statements and not questions, guys. So you're not making my job very easy. Okay. Here's a question. How did your first performance go and what pushed you to do it? That's from Dana Galeri.
Well, I was in the high school literary, I like wrote for the literary rag and did it was like I had a high school band with this girl Ingrid and this girl Jessica before I discovered like Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell, and I was really just in my grunge phase. My first ever show was in the high school cafeteria, screaming, screams actually. But then like I played a lot at these open mic nights in Providence, Rhode Island, when I was a student of art school. Open mics and then like small gigs for years and years and years and years. So.
Nice. Let's see. We'll take one more. We'll do three questions at a time. And I mean, again, these are guys. These are a lot of statements and not questions. Yeah. All right. Let's go back to mine. But
Okay.
yeah, if you have any questions, guys, leave them down there.
There's no
Uh,
footage, no.
oh yeah, and there's the comments too. So you were talking about your writing process. Do you have like, I'm sure it changes by record or even by song, but do you have a recording process that you kind of stick with that you're comfortable with?
You know, I'm getting better at recording as I go, and it's been very empowering. You know, can't say I didn't run into my fair share of managers that would dissuade me from learning how to have the tools as a artist to make everything in like a totally isolation vortex. You know, so I've been recording and getting more into it and getting better. Slow curve, but
Yeah.
it's lately I'm trying to write my new record without guitar, like as a challenge. The first solo record with no guitars. So like I just got a drum machine.
Oh, look at that thing, huh? It's these things that you can do now, man. It's unbelievable. I mean, I guess there are always compact drum machines, but I feel like, especially right now in the pandemic, and I can speak for myself, like there's a lot of time to challenge yourself and learn how to use these things and record at home. That's cool that you have, you know, that you're trying to learn how to use different things. Um, you always get some trolls on here. Man, you know, who's this guy? I like to talk to the trolls sometimes. Somebody said these are horrible questions. Well, you are more than welcome to submit your own questions, my friend, and I'll gladly ask them for
I
you.
think they're great questions. I think I'm having a good time talking to you. So
Thank you, Marissa. Thank
they're
you.
great questions. You know, you cannot please everybody. That's one thing I've learned. I get a lot of crazy emails, and you just try to take the high road and just, you know, like be positive. And I try not to put negative energy out into the world,
I'm
you know.
with you. I'm with you. I'm very much with you. Yeah, when you have a platform, anybody's going to start messing with you. Let me talk about the Drone Flower record because I love that. And I told you before we started this through our emails how much I love the cover of Estrange. And Steve Brodsky, one of my favorite musicians, also a friend. I'm wearing a
I
Muto.
love him so much. He's like one of my favorite people in the universe. He's the best. Yeah.
Unbelievable. The guy's a legend, man. Me and him probably are not too far off from age, but I discovered his music in like maybe sophomore year of high school, which is wild. How did you? Obviously, he's from Boston, but like, how did you and Steve connect?
We met at St. Vitus.
No shit.
Yep.
That's
He,
amazing.
funny enough, we're both mass holes, like super Boston kids, but we met in New York, and he was a friend of, like, he liked my music, just introduced himself, and I liked his music. And what I like about Steve is he has the kind of work ethic that I do. And like, if I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if somebody covered Estranged? The next day he covered Estranged and sent me like the guitar, you know, like the bear thing. And it's so fun to work with people that get it done. Like, you know,
Yeah, and he plays so many different genres too. I mean, from when he was in Converge to Cave In, obviously, and Mutoid Man. I think that he even writes music professionally for like BMG or something is what I think. But yeah, he did a great job with his Strange. I was going to get into that too. So was that his idea or your
nope,
idea?
it was my idea. Um,
No,
though he quickly was on board, like very receptive. I was kind of, I had a like before I knew about like we didn't have internet when I was a kid, you know. So like
Right.
before about Axl's like political things he said in the past, like I had a poster of him and Robert Plant. And, like I was obsessed with Guns N' Roses at a time, and so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like the coolest. And the MTV of the '90s, the videos were just um, very formative influences, you know.
I
Um,
missed that, and I was man, I fucking was obsessed with Guns N' Roses. That
yeah, good.
yeah,
But
that video for Estranged is like so like it's like this epic thing, right? Like I miss that. You don't really see that sort of thing these days, but it's haunting, and you recreated it. You and Steve recreated it in a way that I look for in cover songs because a lot of people just do the same thing. You did the same thing with the Phil Collins cover, which I loved. What did you have fun more with? The Phil Collins In the Air cover or the Estranged cover?
Estranged, well, they were both fun, but at the extremes, we covered extremes more than words on the B side of the Phil Collins release, and that was particularly fun for me. Like just because, like, you know, these are songs that just were like haunting me in some weird way.
Totally. I mean that song by Extreme and the video. If anyone is too young to have seen that, I strongly suggest you check it out for both comedic value and just because it really is a good song. It's a fantastic song. It's a classic. Um, but yeah, like I wanted to ask too. Not just the covers, but your music in general. I find it to be so perfect for like cinematic purpose. And I apologize if I am unaware of any licensing, but have you had any luck with getting over the past 2 decades, like getting stuff licensed on films or TV shows and things of that nature?
I've had I can't say I've had an easy ascent. you know, I've had some luck though, and I'm grateful for all my listeners and fans and stuff. I had like some drops from labels and labels named after songs I wrote and then dropping me, and just stuff like that that could create some obstacles emotionally to maybe having like earlier success. But I think in some ways my phase two, like I became a special needs art teacher for several years, and because I got a teaching degree when I was younger. I took a break, and then Caleb from Sacred Bones, like he had emailed me years ago, and I just had no label. I said I restarted, and so that's like good because I've had some sinks in the past few years, and it feels good now. Um, I know I put the time in,
Yeah,
you know,
no, absolutely.
like
Um, that is just always something I wondered because I can almost just picture like different scenes in my head when I listen to your music. Let me get some of these questions because
I wish like just fingers crossed, like yeah.
well, I definitely know a few people that work in that world of like licensing and publishing. So I'll definitely have to hit you up about that, and maybe we can figure something out. But let's take some of the viewers' questions because I see a ton of them. Man, for people that are so upset about the questions, you guys are not asking
Love
questions.
your questions. I think your questions are great. Who are my favorite musical current artists? Okay, I'm gonna list some ladies I love. I love. How about that?
Go
Well,
for
it's
it.
a great time for female musicians. I love Angel Olsen and Sharon Van Etten. I love Chelsea Wolfe and Emma Ruth Rundle, Iona. Like, I could go on and on and on and on. There's like, I love Kate Bush and there's
Oh
Fiona.
yeah.
I mean, I just think it's my friend Sophia. I think it's just that I could Caroline Polachek. There's all sorts of haunting, killer, psycho, crazy women out there making good music. But that was one question.
Yes, there you go. I agree with you, and I feel like in aggressive music, especially which has been male dominated for so long, we're seeing so many women in aggressive music. And when I say aggressive music, I really should say dark music, because the genres are so blurred now, whether it's goth, industrial, or metal. And I love that we're seeing that. Let's see, we got one here that kind of relates to you. You were mentioning some musicians you like. Jesse Helleroff wants to know, who would you most like to collaborate with?
Gosh, I don't know. Like, I think it would be really cool to sing with Nick Cave, just because the Murder Ballads album, when PJ Harvey and Kylie Minogue sang on it, was like that. Like turned me on to death ballads. Somebody that hi Jesse. Yeah, we went to school together. He works in film,
Oh,
and
okay.
the Ghost question's kind of cool. What was my experience working with the band Ghost?
You worked with the band Ghost?
I opened for them for 6 weeks a few years ago.
How did that go? That's amazing.
That,
They got
that,
fucking huge. Yeah.
that was one of the scariest things that I've ever done in my whole life. Absolutely terrified, especially because I got a lot of nasty email at first, like, who the bleep is this? She's not like really metal, like people are upset because I had pictures of acoustic guitars, but I think I rose to the occasion, and I had a great tour mate, and there, he ended. We don't have to get into the whole story of Ghost, but I kind of got over my stage fright a little.
Yes. No, no, and please feel free to indulge. I just uh, had no idea, and they are a band that nowadays they're playing, at least in New York, they play Barclays, so like they're at an arena level now. Yeah, I'm going to go off track a little bit because we're talking about that, and I was going to ask you about touring and whatnot, but do you ever, aside from the Ghost tour, and I could speak from personal experience dealing with this, like, do you ever have those things where it's like, hey, do you want to go on tour with this band? But just so you know, it might be a little scary because their audience can be a little rough. Has that ever been brought up to you or anything?
Like every tour I get asked to do, yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
like I gotta be honest, like live music has never been easy for me. I love writing music, I love recording it, but I'm not an exhibitionist. I was nervous like this for this thing tonight, which is crazy. I have no reason to be, and I just always have a complicated relationship with touring. I love it after the first few songs, but like the toll it's taken on my body, like with the nerves, I sometimes I just want to Jandak my life out and like just be like Enya in her castle or small
Right,
cat.
right.
Yeah.
It's, people don't realize, and I'm sure that you've been through it over the past, however long, which has been a while for you. Like, you spend 23 hours a day, just kind of like for that 1 hour or 30 minutes or 45 minutes of getting to do what you're trying to set out to do. So it can get real strange sometimes, it can get real strange. What are your favorite bands or artists that you have gotten to tour with over the years?
Oh gosh, well there's so many. Like I love all my musical friends. Um, you know, the like I don't even know where to start, so I won't even answer that. Like there's been all of the experiences have been great. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah,
Giving
no, yeah, I know
diplomatic.
what you mean. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Um, with the whole thing going on right now, I always ask the same question to all my guests. You mentioned some of your favorite female artists, but I preface with this: the quarantine, we obviously have no idea how long we're going to be in it. Hopefully, we'll get out of it sooner than later and get back to regular living. But if you had 5 records that you were stuck with during the quarantine, what records would those be and why?
Well, like my answers are gonna be kind of out there, but I listen to a lot of instrumental music because I have trouble concentrating with so many like racing thoughts in my um So I like go back to this record by the Dirty Three called Ocean Songs a lot. It's one of my favorite records, and I find it very beautiful and relaxing. And I got to tour with Mick Turner, and um, that was cool. Like,
They
so
were a
that,
great band. I remember them. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of like maybe Brian Eno's music for airports. Oh, because again, like if you're talking about quarantine life and needing to stay sane, I need it to be like super, mm, super zen because there's so much trauma and sadness right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you're the first one to address it that way. It's kind of been like your desert island records, but if you consider what we're actually dealing with, the music you're going to want to listen to is going to be reflective of that. So, though you mentioned two records,
okay,
so
well, like I'll list a few more. Like then, if I'm really craving something lyrical, I guess I'd have to go with some um, Leonard Cohen songs of Leonard Cohen, the one with Suzanne on it, like just for just a that's a real like wholesome feeling that reminds me of my childhood, you know.
yeah,
And
classic.
then maybe I know like my influences are really mostly songwriters, like but I like Neil Young Decade, which is the the double record that I was like expecting to fly on it, and um,
Yeah, yeah. That's never the typical choice. So that's good. Everyone always says Harvest Moon, right? So it's cool that you picked the double record that doesn't get as much love. Yeah, I feel like I'm with you, man. Like the whole pandemic has affected probably even like how people are writing because I think a lot of people are writing. Have you been writing music during while you've been stuck at home?
I'm trying like I've been painting quite a bit, oil painting, making sculptures, and I write a lot. And then right now, it's just like it feels kind of like, what do you write songs about when this massive catastrophe is happening? And it's kind of hard to focus. So I think it's okay. People aren't feeling super productive right now. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but I am writing. I'm working on an ambient record, and then I'm also working on a record called Unsolved Mysteries, which is just this idea about songs about every episode of Unsolved, like each
Right.
song is an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and I'm always doing. I just covered Alex Chilton's "All We Ever Got from Them Was Pain," which is kind of great song right now. Um,
I'm familiar. That's one that I haven't heard from many people. Yeah, Alex Chilton, you said, right? Um, the let's see. We had a couple other questions here. I'm gonna take this one right here. Cool. Loved your music for a long time, but I only recently discovered your paintings and photography. Um, are your paintings and photography out there on your socials for people to check out?
yeah. Like the past 5 years, I really got back into my fine art. I went to RISD for like I was like a serious. I wanted to be like the next, I was a very ambitious painter as a kid. I just listened to music in the basement and didn't go on dates or have any dances or, it was a dark
Right.
time. So that was my first love really was painting and so they are on my website and then the photography is just something like as a painter like photography I don't know I have
Yeah. Yeah.
those books and stuff so
Are some of your pieces for sale, or are they more just to kind of put out there to share your art?
well funny enough like people actually have been buying the paintings and like that's been encouraging and helps me to believe in the the worthwhileness of slow art in a fast world just like the feelings of futility and it can really weigh on like an artist because it's like what am I doing to help the world and then you think of a world without art and it's just this constant like fight in my head like should I have been a doctor I don't know and
Right, right.
so
I think
I'm just
most music. musicians probably ask themselves that question, right? Like, because it's just such a hard, it's a hard thing to walk into and rely on it to sort of the things that you have to do to stay to sustain yourself as a artist are it's not all just partying and traveling and hanging out.
Oh, no. Like I've been running my own mail order for like 20 years. Like I have great record labels now, Sacred Bones and Bella Union, but like I still mail out personally everything I like orders from my website, you know? So
Yeah.
I think DIY has actually been beneficial, even though my parents have been like, "Oh man, you gotta have a like, the fact that I do have a day job, like kind of thing." So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's great that you're hands on, and you really have to be because nowadays, like I was saying, to sustain yourself, people just I don't know where people get their money from when they have a million people working with them. I see this a lot working at Revolver and going to St. Vitus. Even some of the bigger bands in underground, they're still doing stuff themselves. We're gonna take a couple more questions here that I saw, and we got some good ones coming in. So let's see. I think that you already answered this. Can you walk us through the process of crafting one of your favorite songs? Well, you know what? Maybe we could. What's one of your favorite songs, and can you tell us about how it came together?
Well, that question is this innate bias, and that it implies that I like any of my music. But uh, I'm really happy with the song Blue Vapor, which is like a recent. It was off my last solo album, and it was really cool and full circle because Patty Schemmel from Hole plays the drums on that track.
Oh shit, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it was the first record where I barely used any reverb on my voice, and it was kind of like a personal, even though I aesthetically still love the wet, dreamy sound, I wanted to try something different. And so I like the raw, grungy vibes of that song, but that was one I just wrote in one sitting, because I was upset. So.
Yeah. How was it? Patty Schemmel, I used to love Hole as well, and she had a documentary and a book that I checked out. I think it was called "Hit So Hard," and she had a really cool story. There it is. I'm looking right at it. It's in front of me. How did that come together, and what was working with her like?
Well, the producers of that record, Lawrence Rothman and Justin Raisin, they're just like way more connected. Like I worked with Randall Dunn for 2 records, July and
Yeah.
Strangers, and then I just wanted to try something in California because I wanted some sunshine. Cause so they're great and talented, and they worked on one of Angel's Olsen's records, the second to last one. And anyway, they knew Patty, and she just came in, and she was so cool. And I tried to keep it cool. It's hard when you meet your idols.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. Let's see. And that's the second time Randall Dunn came up this week.
I know
Great.
Zola's Jesus is right.
Oh yeah, that was Zola Jesus who mentioned Randall Dunn. Um, I'm taking this question. I can't pronounce your screen name. It's a tough one, but I'm so curious as to how did Leonard Cohen influence your art? Your covers of his songs are amazing.
What's weird, it's like on Spotify, if you go up, like my second most listened song is a 2006 cover of Famous Blue Raincoat, which is that's like really old when you talk about like how old I am now versus then, or just feels a long time ago. But he had a massive influence. I mean, he set the bar incredibly high for bringing fine writing to the lyrical form. He is like a true painter of words and influenced like my desire to rise to that descriptive level.
Yeah. Hey, is it your birthday today? Somebody just mentioned something on the comments. Am I missing something?
No, It was my birthday, April 5th. So
Oh,
I don't know what day it is right now, though.
somebody just commented, I know the host is a drummer, but will you sing happy birthday to Marissa? You do not want to hear my voice. Trust me, I'm much better at beats than singing, but happy belated birthday, Marissa.
Thank you.
Yes. um, yeah, the whole you know, tour cycle, which was thrown off unfortunately due to the situation, really sucked. Did you have any upcoming touring plans that hopefully will be rescheduled or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna play New York in June. And that's obviously not gonna happen. And like the plans, I kind of froze emotionally when this all happened. Like I was just about to start you know, it's just being a sensitive person or an empath. It's really hard to kind of stop reading the news and like, you know. But I think I'm gonna probably be on tour when everybody else starts being back on tour. Like I think it's gonna be a while, sadly.
Yeah.
But until but like you know.
Have you thought about do and I apologize if you have done this and I just didn't know, but any live streaming performances or anything like that?
Well, this is really encouraging. Like I was so nervous just to like go live. Like what if I have technical difficulties? And now that I've broken this barrier, I think yeah, I'll try it out. Maybe a concert to cheer people up.
That would be amazing. It makes me wish that I thought about that ahead of time because I could have asked you to do a song or two, but maybe we can do a part two at some point and get you to do something. Um, now, obviously, you mentioned that you are working on some new material, and you know, hopefully, you'll be able to take advantage of this unusual time, and we can hear some newer music sooner than later. So I don't there's a bunch of people that have been asking this, but are there a list of collaborators that you would like to work with perhaps in the future?
Like I mean, there's so many. Like I guess if I could like unearth dead people, it would be even better. But like my heroes are dead. No, there's a lot of people. I just I would like I mean, I would love to do more music for films and because of my like complicated relationship with live performing and my lack of the exhibitionist personality type that it requires. Sometimes I think I would be just like enjoy making horror movie soundtracks, but I'm making
Yeah.
like a real record. I'm just being self-deprecating. Like,
What are your favorite instruments besides the you know you're obviously singing and playing guitar, but in the studio to sort of tinker with and play around with?
well, my voice is my very favorite. Like just doing harmonies and background layers, and but I've been enjoying the organ, and I've been known to play some stringed instruments like the banjo and the dulcimer.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, like,
So it
but
looks like I'm sorry, go ahead.
but the piano is my dream instrument, and I'm working on learning that.
Awesome, awesome. I was going to take a question here from a JV Hemispheres. What are some of your favorite places to perform?
Well, actually, St. Vitus is one of my favorite places to perform in in all of the United States. I've had some of my favorite shows there. Like in terms of countries, I've strangely after the United States, my second most like listened to country is Turkey, which is very like I've toured there a bunch and I think it's a beautiful culture. So I like the venue there.
I've
Small.
never been. I've heard such good things though. Yeah. Well, St. Vitus, we definitely want to have you back as soon as possible. I was planning on coming to see you play, and then this all happened. So it's just
Yeah.
an absolute huge bummer. And you know, a couple people are saying you should play right now, but I don't want to put you on the spot. We will maybe talk about it at some point on a different episode, because now I have my light bulb went off. Let's take a
Yeah.
few more questions. Yeah.
I
And
would, but I just wouldn't know what to pick. It would backfire. I would just spin, you know.
yeah, I mean, we would love it, but I also know how it feels when you're kind of put on the spot. So, you know, I know from working with some people like to do warm ups and stuff like that. So maybe we'll do a proper thing, and I think maybe you know, Saint
Begin
Vitus.
with, I just had a brainstorm. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you
No,
should check in with every single person that you've interviewed for the series and have them do a live song, like one every 20 or something.
I love that idea. I was just gonna. We were reading each other's minds. Some people certainly could do that yourself uh, for sure. So we should definitely talk about having you back if you would love to. If you're willing to perform for us.
I would love to. I just want to get my like spacey vibes on. I don't want to just like pick up the, because you know, I want to like make a make it vibey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in our last few minutes, I like to do some, you know, drop the socials and shout outs. I mean, musicians, you know, who rely on going on the road really need the support. And if people want to buy your merch or, you know, anything from your paintings and any products at all that are available, where can they go to find all that stuff?
On my website, which is just my name.com, and Bandcamp, which is a wonderful site that I think is very supportive to artists, is another great place. Or my record labels have put out great artists, and like just
Sacred Bones.
anybody. They, yeah, Sacred Bones and Bella Union, like they're great people, and I just hope that all the small businesses get through this, like, you
Yeah,
know.
no, people have been so unbelievably generous to St. Vitus, and on behalf of the entire establishment, I just want to thank you all because, you know, on day one, the goal was exceeded in 7 hours, and we just none of us know how anybody's going to get through this. So thank you to everybody that supported the venue, and for your praise, Marissa. Thank you. Um, let's see the final moments here. Obviously, we know where to follow your socials, Sacred Bones. If you tuned in late and you missed the episode, it's going to be available for the next 24 hours right here on St. Vitus Bar, and it'll be on YouTube on my personal channel if you look up my name, Chris Enriquez, within the next 24 hours as well. Do you have any last comments or shout outs or announcements that you want to share with everybody?
Well, I just thank you all for listening, and I hope that you're all staying safe and healthy and getting through this psychologically as much as possible and
Yeah,
physically. Yeah, it's just a hard time for everybody, I think. And
it really is, and we are just really happy that you made time for us this evening. So thank you, because I think a lot of people are just excited to see some of their favorite musicians on our channel every night, and you are somebody that everyone really admires. So thank you so much.
thank you. I thought your questions were awesome, and yeah.
I, I'm used to the trolls. You can't do anything online, but like you said, I like to stay positive. And guys, be kind to each other. Guys and girls, be kind to each other. Be respectful, and just stay safe and stay healthy. And I promise you that Marissa, I will talk to her on the side and figure out some live streaming performances, because I think that's the next step in how we can further keep everybody engaged in art and subcultures and underground stuff. It's so important that we support each other. So thank you so much, and I'll be in touch.
Yeah, well, you have a good night, and this was super fun. Thanks for being so sweet. All right, so
Absolutely.
what do? You just end it like by pressing the button?
Yes, and then we'll make sure that everybody knows where to watch the episode after it goes away. Yeah.
All right. You have a good night, okay?
Have a good night, Marissa. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate that. And I appreciate your support. You can follow me at Chris Enriquez Drums, and you can donate to St. Vitus Bar at the Kickstarter. If you go on right here on Instagram, or if you prefer Facebook or the website, the Kickstarter's there. There's also a separate Venmo account at Saint/Vitus/bar where you can directly support the bartenders, and because we're separating it. But you can watch this entire episode on my personal YouTube channel. It'll be up in about. Hey, Brian Barnes, I appreciate that. We always get trolls, and I don't understand that. Thank you, Sinequanin. Also, that's very kind of you. You can really second guess yourself when people are criticizing you when you're trying to do something. So that really means a lot to me. I appreciate it. Thank you. So yes, if you want to watch the episode and you missed the first half, go to YouTube and look me up, Christopher Enriquez. You can watch all the past episodes with our guests that we had, from Russian Circles to King Woman to Dillinger Escape Plan and to Marissa Nadler. So stay safe out there, and like I said, be good to each other. Take care. Bye.